Welcome to the Grassroots Army podcast. I am, of course, your host, former Michigan gubernatorial candidate Garrett Soldano, and I'm excited again to have Mr. Clay Clark on the podcast. And we are going to talk about a variety of things today, but especially with the Reawakening tour that's coming into the Detroit area on June 7th and 8th. So, Clay, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Hey, thank you very much. I really do appreciate you there, and I hope you've been doing well. And I will just tell people June 7th and 8th, that's the final Reawaken America Tour event that I'm aware of. We'll be doing June 7th and 8th, and we're bringing the biggest lineup we've ever had. So President Trump's chief legal spokesperson, Alina Habba, will be there. Kash Patel, Eric Trump, Laura Trump, General Flynn, Mike Lindell, Jim Brewer, Dr. Judy Mikovits, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. There's 70-plus speakers over 2 days. Amanda Grace, Julie Green. It's going to be a blasty blast. And if anybody wants to go, as always, as a housekeeping note, you can always name your price to our event. So I'm not attacking other events where you have to pay more or you have to, whatever. But our events, you can just name your price. And we do that because that's that's the sacrifice my wife and I feel like we're supposed to make right now. And so we want to make it affordable for everybody. So you just go to time2freeamerica.com and get those tickets right now. Request those tickets June 7th and 8th in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, we included in the description where the link is for folks to go, and I don't feel that you're going to have any problem getting people there. You said it's going to be the final one as of right now?
Yeah, but basically, these events are not something I ever wanted to do. It's not on my bucket list. It's actually kind of on my reverse bucket list. Many years ago, I built a very large entertainment company. We used to do 4,000 events a year. I sold it, and I really cannot stand politics. I do not get along with Republicans. I do not like Democrats. I'm not a big fan of Mike Pence. I don't do the George Bush thing. I don't do the uniparty. I don't do the with all due respect. I don't like watching debates. I really don't like participating in any kind of political thing at all. Because I find that the vast majority of it is a complete waste of time, which is why I became an entrepreneur, so I could focus on building a business or focusing on what I can control, So despite the jackassery of government, I can build successful companies. But when the Great Reset happened and the lockdowns and quarantines and curfews showed up, I knew, not because somebody told me, but I knew through research that the models that said 2.2 million people would die from COVID were false. I knew that the PCR, by the way, they were funded by Bill Gates, made by Neil Ferguson. I knew that the PCR tests, the polymerase chain reaction tests, were falsely calibrated to inflate cases. I knew COVID was less deadly than the flu and was 100% treatable with hydroxychloroquine. Someone says, how did you know that? It was on the NIH website before the lockdowns. I knew that the system and method for testing for COVID-19 was patented in 2015. Look it up. System and method for testing for COVID-19. Into Google, if you type it in, you'll find it. System and method for testing for COVID-19 was patented in 2015. And I knew there's this thing called the Great Reset that was being implemented. I just couldn't believe that Trump had Fauci on stage or on the mic or on the platform at the White House. And I couldn't believe that the Scarf Queen, Deborah Birx, that these swamp creatures were on the podium with Trump misinforming Americans at scale. And it occurred to me that Trump did not know what was going on. And it occurred to me that Deborah Birx was absolutely duping the American people. And it occurred to me that Mike Pence was able to manipulate Christians because he speaks Christianese. I don't speak Christianese, but Christianese is where you sound, I'll try to imitate it, but it's where you sound like you really love the American people because our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, has put us in this position as your vice president to serve and to lead and protect our God-given rights. And so if we could all work together, we'll make it through this terrible crisis in American history, but we will prevail in the Lord's name. But just like, get out of here. You just total jackassery. I saw through the jackassery, and that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, well, I mean, we agree with you. I agree with you, especially with politics. It's hot garbage on both sides of the aisle. And that's
right.
where I'm involved in this grassroots army now. Like, it's just it's always going to have a political branch. Don't get me wrong, because we need people to stay awakened. We need people to stay engaged and activated to hopefully get the right people in there. But I'm really evolving this because I'm a chiropractor, so I always like to figure out the why in people, the why people are having symptoms, why they react, why they decide the things that they do. And so when you kind of look at as everything that happened with the pandemic. I believe that people are physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially weak. And if they were mentally, spiritually, and financially strong, they would have been more apt to stand up against the hot garbage. But physically weak, people are not taking care of their bodies. Mentally weak, they just are sheep. The spiritual weak, how many churches shut down, for God's sakes, right?
Well, now you talk about chiropractors and churches. I just want to introduce. I didn't know we were going to go here, but this is great. If anybody does a search on Google for Tulsa just do a search for Tulsa Breck, B-R-E-C-K. So Dr. Breck, chiropractor in Tulsa, he's a guy that I've worked with, and I helped him to grow his business about eightfold. So we're talking like 8 times larger from, the time we essentially met until, he stopped being a client. Okay. I work with a lot of chiropractors. I'm not trying to fish for clients, but this is a real thing. And so I only work with 160 clients at any given time. And for anybody who wants to see the success story of Dr. Breck, you just go to thrivetimeshow.com and you'll see it. And how I make money, this is how I make money. I tell a guy like Dr. Breck, I say, hey, I will charge you $1,700 a month, or if you can't do that, we have scholarship options. That's kind of my mindset. But I want a small percentage of the growth. And the clients like Dr. Breck, they get it. They go, really? So you get a percentage of the growth? Yeah. So true story. Yesterday, I was talking to a client called shawhomes.com. I've worked with them for years. We've helped them grow from, look it up, folks, shawhomes.com, from $16 million to $160 million. From $16 million to $160. That's just one example. I've worked with OxyFresh, oxifresh.com. Help them to grow to over 500 locations. Look it up, oxyfresh.com. So you look these things up and you go, well, Clay, why are you talking about these brands? Because I help them grow. Now, let me tell you what happens every time that I help any business grow, every time. Then maybe this is great business tips for somebody, okay? First step I do with every client, I say, what we're going to do is we're going to install a tracking sheet, Dr. Breck, Shaw Homes, whoever, and we're going to track how many leads you get. That's step one. Build a tracking sheet because you measure what you treasure. Okay. Step 2 is I want to install call recording. I recommend a service called clarityvoice.com, but you can use whatever you want. So when the phone rings, thank you for calling, yada, yada, this call may be recorded for quality assurance. And you pick up the phone. And every single time, as the Lord is my witness, every single time we listen to the calls, a massive epiphany happens. Because the business owner goes, oh, no. Because they find out that their front desk person, man or woman, it has never been held accountable, ever. And so they're not following the script. They're not following the system. They don't sound energetic. They don't sound engaged. And so typically I can double the conversion rate or the number of new customers just by installing call recording and listening to the calls. So in my weekly coaching calls with my client, you know what we do for the whole hour? We listen to calls and we find out real quickly there's jackassery. Now, let me tell you the 3 excuses people give you in politics and in business. There's just 3. It could be thousands of subcategories, but there's 3 main ones. One is I didn't know. So Republican Congress today is like, we did not know. We did not know the court. And there's all this BS about we're going to go down to the border this weekend with Fox News and cover live at the border the corruption. And it's like breaking news. Anthony Fauci used gain-of-function research to increase the transmissibility of a naturally occurring virus to the point that it could jump species and infect humans. Whatever. That's not breaking news. Breaking news. Fox works for you. We're live here at the border underneath a bridge. Look at the bridge. Look how unbelievable. And then people are like, oh. So I did not know. That's the thing. So every call rep says it too. I didn't know. I didn't know I needed to follow the script. I didn't know I needed to make a certain number of calls. I didn't know I needed to take inbound patient leads and turn them into actual chiropractic patients. What? Second is I forgot. I forgot. I guess I forgot we had biolabs all over America. I didn't know we were putting a biolab in Colorado. I didn't know we were putting a gain of function research in Colorado, just outside of Denver. We should look at it. I didn't know that the money we were sending to Ukraine was allowing Zelensky to invest in yachts and personal property gains. And I didn't know that Zelensky used to be a super lascivious, sexual, almost homosexual dancer guy. I didn't know. I had no idea. I was unaware. I thought he was a good guy. I thought Fauci was a good person. I thought Deborah Birx was great. I thought her scarves were nice. I didn't know that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, was a member of the World Economic Forum. I didn't know that Dan Crenshaw, Are you ready to sign the X Disease Act of 2023? Dan Crenshaw. I didn't know he was a member of the World Economic Forum. I didn't know. So I forgot. What? I used to do. One is I forgot. Two, I didn't know. And the third is it's just sort of an actual act dumb. Like, oh, wow. Thanks for pointing that out, boss. Thank you, chiropractic boss. Thank you, sir. Sir, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. And that's what they do. And so in business, why I love it is I will say something crazy. I did it at Shaw Holmes, did it at Dr. Breck, did it with every one of my clients. I say, here's what we're going to do with the front desk person. Okay, here's my strategy. Those that we cannot motivate, those that we cannot inspire, we must fire. So I sit down with the young man or young woman and I say, hey, I need you to follow the script. I forgot. I did not know. Thank you for pointing that. I go, that's awesome. If you don't improve in the next 600 seconds, you got like 600 seconds to make a life change. If not, I'm just going to fire you. And I'll actually take great joy in it because the Bible tells us in Proverbs 10:4, God blesses the hand of the diligent and punishes the slackard. So I think this is God teaching you a lesson. So get better or get out of here. And it's amazing how the growth happens. And there's other things I do to grow companies, but that's just one of them. But in government, they never, ever fire anybody who won't do what's required. There's no consequence. It's just complete jackassery. And you've been on this for a long time. Yeah, your listeners know it. And as a chiropractor, how long have you known about the corruption of big pharma? I mean, as a chiropractor, I mean, how long?
Decades.
Right. And so what you do is you sit down with a patient. And do you still practice?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you sit down with a first-time patient and they say, hey, I'm bloated, I'm groggy, I'm whatever. And then you as the chiropractor, correct me if I'm wrong, I work with a lot of chiropractors. I work with 3 currently, but you say like, are you on many medications? You know, I mean, is that part of the process?
Yeah, we have systems in place.
You get it though. And then they go, well, I am on yada yada, and I am on yada yada. I mean, aren't what 60% of people on something? Aren't we, about 60% of people are on something?
Correct.
And then they go, but that's not affecting me. And you go, do you consume alcohol? And they go, well, just every night, just an entire bottle of wine every night. You're like, okay. And so you figure that out, and you have to sit down with the customer, the patient, in a loving way. And you have to say, hey, if you're going to lose that weight, lose that fogginess, lose that grogginess, lose that bloating, well, here's what I need you to do. And again, I'm not saying you say this, but this is my clients say this in their own way, but it's like, you need to stop eating wheat, stop eating sweets, and stop drinking alcohol. Okay. And you're going to see weight loss if you just focus on eating meat and vegetables. All right. Can we meat, vegetables? Can we avoid the wheat, the sweet, the alcohol? And the people that make the change get the result. And the people that don't make the change don't. But in politics, they don't make any change. They don't change it. They just say, we need to launch an investigation, which seems like there's action, but there's not. I mean, how many times does Ted Cruz have to go to the border and talk about breaking news, Ted Cruz at the border, before we recognize they're not going to do anything?
Yeah. I mean, that's the frustrating part. And that's why I think people are getting burnt out with all this hot garbage. Hey, now that we're on like business, because now I'm interested, especially with some of the things that you've done. You're obviously very successful as an entrepreneur. And something I went to a Tony Robbins 5-day business mastery course last week. And something that he said really stuck with me is that, people overestimate what they're going to do in a year and they underestimate what they're going to do in a decade, 2 decades, and 3 decades. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing that Tony Robbins says, and he doesn't say it the way I'm going to say it, so please go listen to Tony on your own, but where Tony and I don't know that we disagree. I am like one of the most blunt people I've ever been around. Okay. So what I would say, and Tony will say it in his own way, but if you measure it, so I go back to that tracking sheet working with chiropractors and home builders, what you measure is what you treasure. Okay. And where you slack, that's where you lack. So what Tony focuses on, he'll mention it in his own way at his conferences, but if you track your results daily, if you look at the daily results of your chiropractic business, so let me just give everybody out there, if you own a chiropractic business, you're a doctor, you're a dentist, you're a lawyer, anybody at all, this is one pro tip that I'm not kidding. If you have a business right now that's doing $500,000 a year, if you listen to what I'm saying and implement this one thing, I promise you 100%, you will double your revenue in 18 months. And I'm not charging anything. It's just a free move. every single patient and every single customer you ever work with, ever, you sit down and you say, every restaurant consumer, every buyer, you sit down with them and you say, hey, if you could leave us an objective review today on Google about your experience before you leave, you are entered in for a chance to win a trip to Hawaii. If you do it every single time, you will for sure, in 18 months, guaranteed, double your revenue. And it's so crazy. You know why? Because people they read reviews. And you know who writes reviews? Nobody except for people that are pissed. That's how it is. So I worked with a hand surgeon years ago. I worked with a spine. I'll give you an example. I worked with a cosmetic surgeon by the name of Dr. Ladd Atkins. Dr. Ladd Atkins, you can look him up. He's in Tulsa. I worked with a spine doctor named Dr. Chris Parchuri. These are just a couple, and I could just fire them off all day. But the point is, I worked with Dr. Whitlock, a cosmetic surgeon in Tulsa. I mean, and most of my clients are with me for 6 years. So when you look them up, you'll see a lot of stuff there. But, if you were going to have an elective cosmetic procedure because you had glass in your face and you have a scar and you have the scar removed, or you need to have a spinal surgery, God forbid, do you want to go with the guy who has 21 reviews, 40% of them are toxic? No. And why would the guy have bad reviews by default? Because the employee you had to fire, you know what they're going to do as soon as you fire the employee? They're going to go leave a review. If you knew what it was like to work for this tyrant, he micromanages people. So if your competitor, you know what they're going to do? They're going to make a fake Google account and leave you a review. So you've got to do that. And if you'll do it every day, like you have a psychological problem, like that's all you do, you will have tremendous success. Back to your question, I've written at this point, as of today, I think it's 22 books, but if you look it up, maybe it's one more or one less, but when I write books, it's not like I'm a genius. I just sit down and I say, I'm going to write for an hour a day. So this is one of my books I wrote years ago. I'm going to take an hour a day and write every day, 1 hour a day. Well, why? Because I'm not a genius. And so if I take an hour a day, that's 7 hours a week. And if I do that for 52 weeks a year, usually I pop out a book a year. Why? Because I block out an hour a day, and so this Reawaken tour that we do, I have committed that I'm going to host these events as long as Eric Trump and General Flynn need me to do it. Why? Because at our events, we entirely talk about the conversations that are not allowed to be discussed at RNC sanctioned events. So, Jim Brewer gets up there and talks about corrupt Hollywood. And then you got Dr. Mikovits talking about gain of function research. And then you have Dr. Mikovits talking about the military-industrial complex. Then you have General Flynn talking about endless wars that we shouldn't have been in. You talk about an uncomfortable conversation. One of America's most respected generals gets up and tells an audience of people that many of the foreign wars that we've been involved in, we did not need to be involved in. You talk about talking to an audience where they may have lost a son or daughter, and you have that sobering realization that your son or daughter lost their lives fighting in a war that wasn't actually what we thought it was. You have 2 days of that. And what we do is we launch people into their communities. And some people go on to launch a podcast like yours. Some people go on to run for school board. Some people decide to fight against the woke agenda as a soccer coach. But that's what we're trying to do, is educate and activate. And if you're out there today and you go to timetofreeamerica.com, and I'm inviting you here live on your show, we do free booths for media. And I didn't realize that was a new thing. But a bunch of good friends of mine, after my first event, they said, Clay, a lot of these events, they charge like $5,000 for a media booth. Because if you're going to let people interview Alina Habba or Mike Lindell or General Flynn, a lot of these, most of these conferences are at least $5,000 to $20,000 for a booth to interview people. And I'm going, we'll continue to do it for free. So we do it for free. People say, what's your motive? I'm trying to save the country. Probably your motive as a chiropractor. You're trying to save lives, optimize lives. It's just a wild time to be alive.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing to do, is continue to educate and empower people and allow them to have the action to take to do great positive change in the community. The power is. To pick your brain on a couple more things, I know we have a limited time with you. What are your top three things that make you a big success?
Well, okay. One is I wake up every day at 3 a.m. and I go to bed at 9. So Not saying that's the way to live. I'm just saying that's what I do. So
What do you do at 3 a.m.?
Well, when I go to bed at night, the first off is that everyone thinks it's bizarre, but my kids don't. And my wife does. We've been married 23 years, So last night it's like 8:59 and I'm going, all right, guys, going to bed. And I just go to bed at 9 because I know I have to wake up at 3. Now, when I wake up at 3, what I do is this is my to-do list. And I type out my to-do list of what I'm going to get done for the day every single day. And then after I type out my to-do list, I block out time. So I block my schedule. So it's a block. So being on this wonderful Grassroots Army podcast isn't by mistake. You chose to block out time, and I appreciate you for doing that. But we didn't drift into it. We blocked out time. But for some reason, people only block out time for interviews or for doctor's appointments. But I block out time to write a book. I put in my schedule, write book. And then even though I have an office with glass for transparency, accountability, whatever, everyone knows, do not talk to me. Don't come into my office while I'm writing my book. I'll be out when I say I'm going to. So I block out time. So 1, go to bed at 9, wake up at 3, 2, block out time. It's huge. Block out time every day and make my to-do list. And then the third thing is I follow up until other people throw up. I mean, I am like a relentless. So right now I'm planting 47 trees. I don't know if that's symbolic of Trump, if that was a subconscious number or not, but I decided to plant 47 trees. I talked to the tree planter guy and I said, I want to plant trees. He said, we can get, 40 something. I said, let's get 47. And I don't know that I was thinking about Trump, but maybe I was, but I said, let's get 47. So I'm getting them planted. So if you come to my, by the way, we have a free podcaster optimization event coming up, 100% free in March. It's invitation only kind of a thing, meaning like if you're listening right now and you have a podcast or you want to, you can come for free, no charge. It's hosted by Mike Lindell, General Flynn, Laura Logan, and myself, 0 cost to the attendees. And we provide food and there's no upcharge. I'm not trying to say anything, just trying to help save America. But this is our 3rd one we've done and it goes great. But when you show up, if done right, sir, you'll be able to look around and count the fruit trees and you'll be able to go, there's 47. And it's following up. And the tree guy we're using is a phenomenal person. It's called Outside Inc. is his company. He's very accurate. He's very honest. But I do follow up. So I don't just say, plant me 47. I will go out there and count. And before I pay the bill, I'm going to make sure there's 47 trees. So it's that accountability, that follow-up. So again, every day, go to bed at 9, wake up at 3. That's what I do. 2, wake up, block out time, make my to-do list. And then 3, I follow up until people throw up. I mean, it's well past the point of awkward when people are like, geez, you followed up with me twice today. I want to tell you the name of the person. I can't yet, but there's a huge megawatt top 5 celebrity. Like if I mentioned his name, every single listener would know. And this guy may come to our Reawaken tour. Maybe he won't. I don't know. But he wants to come. And so I every day he's on my list. And I call him every day. And because he's such a huge name, he would have to move his schedule around quite a bit to get, to be at our event. And we've got enough time where he can do it. But I mean, for him to come to an event that's this divisive, this fact-based, it would be the first time for him ever doing it. And for him coming to the event without compensation would be the first for him. So this is like a big moment for him. And he said, hey, I'll let you know, by February 1st if I'm coming or not. So I just every day call once a day, text once a day, because I just want to know what we're doing. And some people think it's harassment, but I just do it I follow up every single day.
And Clay, do you do this 7 days a week?
Well, this is my world, and I'm not saying you should do this. I work 6 days a week. I always work from 3 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day. I'm not saying you should. That's what I do. 3 a.m. to 6. That's what I do. And then Sunday, I do wake up at 3. I do make my to-do list. I do make my calendar. But then I try to spend that day almost entirely doing family events, going to church, doing things that I don't know how much, I don't know if God would be pleased with my interpretation of the Sabbath, but I try to make it a day focused on family and faith. That's what I tried on Sunday, but then every night, like I spent great time with my kids last night, but guess when I did it? Between 6 and 9. And some people think you're a horrible person. I kind of view myself like an 1870s kind of dad, where your dad was a farmer and he didn't apologize for working 6 days a week. And he came home and spent time with the kids and then went to bed. That's what I do. I don't feel a need. I don't feel any dissonance. I don't have a fear of missing out. I have 5 wonderful kids. My oldest is 19. She's turned out great. My son's 16. I don't feel like I'm missing out on the best years of their life or that I'm a bad person because I work 6 days a week. I actually feel great about it. And I think I'm setting an example for my kids about working 6 days, which, by the way, if you read the book of Exodus and Genesis, the Bible instructs us to work 6 days and rest on the seventh. And that's where I sort of get that inspiration.
Well, I like that kind of approach. It's quality, not quantity. And I
Yeah.
think that you are teaching subconsciously to your kids on what it takes to be an ultra success, which you have proven in your own life. So this is the last question I want to ask you. Like, where do you see yourself here in 10 years then? Like, what is your ideal situation 10 years from today in your
Well,
business?
I hit all my business goals when I was 27 years old. So I don't have business goals. I was very clear that I don't want to take on more than 160 clients. And so that's where I'm at. I'm very happy with it. I never want to grow beyond that. That's because I know all of my clients. Like if every one of my clients walks in the building for one of our conferences, we do business conferences every 2 months. I know them all. They know me. We've had 6 and 7, 10-year relationships. So that's where so I'm good there, but I make a percentage of their growth. So those clients are all growing. And so my income grows every year as they grow, but I really want to save this country. And so that's where I've kind of put my focus on is I said, I'm going to block out 4 years of my life to focus on doing what I can do to save the country. And I don't know that it's been effective or hasn't been effective. A lot of people have said they've been touched by the tour. Some haven't. I get it. But I'm just trying to discuss the conversations that need to be had so that we can have an elected group, a educated group of people going out there and voting.
Well, we appreciate you, Clay, and everything that you've done. And you have sacrificed over the last several years to get this thing going and awaken people. So we appreciate the hell out of you, sir.
Thank you, brother. And again, if you want to come out to our podcast workshop in March, no cost, we'd love to do it. You can text me. Also, if you would like to come to the Reawaken tour in June and have a media booth, you can do that, no cost. I really appreciate all the work you're doing.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Wow. I want to kind of digest some of the things he said, because I think it's important for you guys to know, because that's where we're going. We're ending the physical pillar of the Grassroots Army, and now we're going into the mental component and having that kind of success mentality. So again, let me reiterate, the Grassroots Army is always going to have a political leg. Why? Because I think it's important to keep people engaged, but the primary content is not going to be 100% politics anymore. It's going to be 90% inspiring people to get better physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. And here's why. Again, what I talked to Clay about is I analyzed the pandemic on why people reacted the way that they did. And what I came up with is the reason people reacted this way is because they are physically weak, mentally weak, spiritually weak, and they are financially weak. And so that's why I came up with the 4 pillars of being what's called Grassroots Army Strong. I really, truly believe if you go back 4 years and people had physical strength, mental strength, right? Financial strength and spiritual strength, a lot more people would have stood up and we would not have gone through that garbage scenario. You kind of look at the big pharma juice right now. Not a lot of people are taking it. You're going to see that thing slowly die off because they're not going to make any money off of it. They tried fear. They tried force. They tried to, tell us that it works with no research backing it, right? So less and less people are now taking it. So you're going to see them slowly exit stage left with this. And that's because people are mentally strong now. They've got the information. They've been able to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do it. The more and more employers are saying, we're not going to mandate because we're not going to face the lawsuits and everything else. And it's not been proven that it works. So those are all part of the pillars. And so I want to kind of digest what he said about those aren't success habits that he was talking about. Habitual patterns happen every 90 to 120 days. To create a successful habit, you have to do that. If you're going to hit the gym, you're going to do that. But as time goes on, those habits evolve into what's called rituals. Rituals are, you're going to do it no matter what. Rain, snow, sunshine, you're going to do your daily rituals. And what he was talking about, the 3 things that he does, those aren't habits. Those are success rituals. Now, they may work for Clay, or they do work for Clay, but they may or may not work for you. But you have to decide what you're willing to do every single day. But if you find yourself in a hole, if you're not living a life full of passion and abundance, well, obviously what you have been doing is not working. So guess what? You have to change. And guess what? People don't like change because it's uncomfortable. but you have to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And so that's why I'm having these personalities on this podcast, is to inspire you folks that there's many different ways of what success is. And there's many different definitions of what success is. You have to define what your success is, but you have to start doing daily habitual habits. All right. Daily habitual activities, I guess you could say, every single day. You have to do it. So I'm kind of like Clay. I don't get up at 3. I'm usually up at 4 a.m. I go right into my Bible study. Then I start getting my day planned out. I walk with my wife. I come to work. I work out, and I do have time for my kids in the evening, just like Clay is, like 6 to 9. It's usually family time, but I'm usually in bed about 8 o'clock. But you have to do those things, and you do those things every single day. And I agree with Tony Robbins. People overestimate what they're going to do a year, but underestimate what they're going to do in a decade, because a lot of times people start these things kind of like New Year's resolutions, and then they quit. That doesn't work. Well, it takes time. It takes time to get that apple tree that produces a harvest for people to enjoy. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a month. It takes years for an apple tree to start producing a bountiful harvest. You have to approach life that way. You have to approach your weight loss, your ability to build a business. You have to approach all those things. But if you do those things every single day, just a little time, every single day, that's going to add up. And if you do that over a decade, if you create successful rituals every single day, you're going to be successful. I guarantee it. So you're going to have to look in the mirror and decide, what's your definition of success? What do you see yourself in 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years? What's going to really define who you are and what your purpose is? And you're going to have to follow through with it. I'm not here. It's funny. Like, people are like, you're motivating. I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to smack you upside the head to give you facts. Okay. And that's what I've done before politics. And I agree with Clay 100% when he uses roasting politics, because it's horrible. It's just, there's so much bad energy. And if there's so many, and I don't want to get into it because I'm not going to focus on my energy on it anymore, but there's so many just people out there that have just enormous egos. And if you don't agree with them, they attack you. You're a rhino and everything else. And it's really unfortunate that it's gotten to this way. And it's on both sides of the aisle. And the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, they're both corrupt. They truly are. I mean, look at the so-called politicians who represent that party. It's unfortunate. It really is. And so that's why I'm just done with it. I truly am. And I'm going to focus on helping all of you be better versions of yourself, because that's what I think is the most important. So if you have that opportunity to stand up, you're going to be physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially strong to do so, because a lot of these folks that got fired from their jobs because they didn't follow through with the mandates, my goodness gracious, if they were financially strong at that time, they wouldn't even have to get fired. They would have just quit and said, I'm not dealing with this garbage. They would have never even been in the position. Now, if you're one of those people that got fired, that's wrong. Lawsuits and everything you can do. But my point is preventing this thing from happening again. And if you're financially strong, if you listen to the podcast here in a couple months, when we go into that segment, I'm very passionate about having multiple sources of income. You have to have multiple sources of income. You can't just rely on one income. Or even if you're a husband and wife team, you have to do more than just your two incomes. You have to have a side gig. And there's so many opportunities to make money in today's environment. There truly is. You just have to be aware of them. I mean, there's many multi-level marketing companies. I'm a fan of those companies. If you find a company that you resonate with, that you love the product, you have a personal experience with the product, go do it. Or there's so many opportunities online with YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, the monetization, even Rumble's monetized now, Twitter's monetized, but you have to define what you're going to kind of put out there with content. And you're going to have to be consistent with it. It takes work. It does. I mean, it's not just you put a couple videos in. I mean, to do all these things and to produce content and post it, it's a job. And depending on the level of success that you want with that job, you're going to have to put in a lot of time on whatever that level is. And then you have to deal with the censorship. Facebook, all of them, they don't like putting content out there that's going to fight against their narrative. It's their business. They can do what they want. But how many times have I been deplatformed and censored, and we still are? So, but my point is this, is you have to develop a side gig. And I'm going to do everything in my power to continue to motivate and inspire you guys to understand these things and be aware that you have to be physically strong. You have to be mentally strong. You have to be spiritually strong. And then again, you have to be financially strong. And if you have those 4 pillars, you're going to be Grassroots Army strong, and you're going to be able to take whatever life throws at you, because I think we're just in the beginning of some things, but we're going to be prepared next time. We're not going to be blindsided with this garbage. We're going to be able to stand tall with it. So you're going to continue to see more and more content of what I want to do, of inspiration and getting folks to follow through, and less politics. Again, I'll still call out the hot garbage when I see it on both sides of the aisle. But mainly, I'm not going to be involved with politics anymore. I'm going to be totally honest with all of you. Every single day that goes on that I'm not in it, I feel better. I truly do. And my soul is healing. My heart's healing. And I'm a better person to be out of that garbage. That's for sure. And I really believe I did my time. I did my 4 years, my service to this country. And I'm going to step away from that and focus on what I feel is my true purpose. And that's serving all of you. All right. So one thing I want to point out, because I love this, because most of us are in Michigan that follow us, Detroit Lions, I want to play this video of Dan Campbell, and I want to talk about it. So here we go.
A couple of you look at me like, what the why are we going live? I got it. Here's what I need, man. I need you to trust me. I swear to God, I'm not a lunatic. I swear to you. And if I absolutely knew we could get to where we need to get without ever putting pads on, I'd do it. I swear to you. But also for us as a team to get better. Defensively, what is the essence of what we do, man? What are the 2 things? Pursuit and tackle. Pursuit and tackle. Man, if you don't work on tackling, if we don't work on run after catch, making a move, man, what are we doing, man? Then we finally get to week 8 and we come to life because we got enough reps. That's what I'm doing, and I swear, man, I don't want to put anybody in jeopardy, but we have to do it, man. I believe it. We're not going to do it every day. I'm going to give you an illustration tonight. Man, I got a plan, I swear to you. All I think about is you guys. That's all I think about, man. That's all I think about is you guys and how I set you up for the best possible advantage I can give you to have a season. I swear to you, man. I just need you to trust me. That's all. Please.
Powerful, right? So let's break that down. That is a true leader. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with that speech, that wasn't this year. That was last year. Okay, that was last year during fall camp. Now, playing at the Division I level and getting a shot at the Chicago Bears, the reason a lot of these athletes don't want to hit, especially during camp, is they don't want to get injured. And they just don't want to put their body in that position. And Dan Campbell came in there with a different philosophy. He's like, hey, we're going to make sure that our tackling's on point, that we're tough and we're gritty, right? And he was telling those guys that was his plan. And look, he just came off of a pretty low season, the year before. They didn't do too well. And so there was the old kind of belief system, like, here we go. It's the old Lions again. And he didn't point fingers. See, as a leader, you don't point fingers. You take accountability. You solve things, right? You be an inspiration. And unfortunately, in a lot of businesses in society, we have they're not even leaders, people that are in leadership positions that they have no right to be there because they're not following through with what they said they were going to do. See, he had a very horrible year, his first year here, and he could have pointed fingers. He could have said it's the organization, it's the athletes, it's the fans, it's our facilities. You didn't hear any of that garbage, because that's what true leaders do. They find a way. They don't continue to scream from the rooftops and blame everyone else and criticize everyone else. They look at the mirror and say, okay, what do I need to do to get the most out of these athletes? What do I need to do to get the most out of this organization? Who else do we need to bring in to really inspire more? See, that's what leaders do. And he is the true definition of a leader. And you can feel his heart and his passion. And guess what? He backs up what he says. Everything that guy said on that soapbox last year, he backed up. Didn't point fingers, just produced. That is what true leaders do. And it's our job to continue to hold these people who say they're leaders accountable when they're not following through with what they're saying they're going to do, when they get elected, when they run for office, all that. That's your job. That is your job, and you have to understand that. It's not that you hate the person. It's not that you're a rhino. You hold them accountable. You truly do. You give them a shot, and if they don't back up with what they're doing, because true character is defined when times get rough and when crisis happens. It's easy to be a leader when it's all sunshine and rainbows and everything's going good. But true leadership is defined when you're put up against a wall, you're knocked to the ground, and people are holding you accountable. How are you going to react? Are you going to rise up? Or are you going to start pointing the fingers and blame everyone else? Are you going to blame your situations? You're going to blame your past? Are you going to rise up against that and inspire people to follow you and do what needs to happen for you to be in a successful organization? That is what true leaders do. And that is what we need at all levels of office. I'm talking about your townships, your school boards, the GOP, right? That organization, business organizations everywhere. But that is when true character is defined, when times are tough. And that's why I will continue to do everything that I can and hold these elected officials accountable on both sides of the aisle and hold myself accountable. I'm not perfect. That's for damn sure. I am not perfect, but I do every single day try to improve myself physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. I truly do. I hold that on myself, and I look at myself in the mirror every single day before I go to bed, and I say, did I do enough to get better in those areas? Did I serve people? Did I inspire people? And then I wake up the next morning and I say, okay, what are you going to do today to get a little better in each area of those pillars? And I do. That's my daily ritual. I really, really do. And it works. It really does. And you're going to get feedback. You're going to get negative and positive feedback. You're going to get negative, and you got to take those punches. But as long as you're true to who you are and what you're trying to do, and my big thing is serving humanity, you can go to sleep every single night and put your head on that pillow and say, you know what? It was a tough day. I got through it. I got a little better, and tomorrow's a new day. And then you pop out of bed and you continue to do that. And over time, you'll have a life that you never even knew and thought was possible. Okay? So be like Dan Campbell. Go Lions. Man, I'm excited for this game. Have a great day, everyone. God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan, of course, and always. God bless these United States.